What's going on, everybody? Sean and Ev here with SEVelocity. I'm Ev, he's Sean. Back for episode 4, I believe, week 4. Right back into the NBA playoffs. Some big stuff to talk about. Not to mention some delicious wings coming my way, because as you all know, Clippers cleaned up this last Sunday. No problem. Kawhi stepped up. No surprise there. Did you want to add any thoughts before I continue?
Hello, everyone. I just want to point out that this is the first time Evan has ever won a basketball bet against me. Ever. I've been on a win streak since last year of basketball bets, not just with Ev, but with multiple people. But all good things have to come to an end eventually.
Uh
And I
huh.
also got to point out that odd number years are usually bad years for me. I do better with even numbers. But next time I'm back in New York, I'm gonna pay up and treat my boy to some wings.
Cannot wait. Sounds awesome. And I'm sure there's going to be at least one more bet down the line for these playoffs. Um,
Mhm.
so before we go into specific playoff details, I want to. Well, actually, let's go right back into Mavericks versus Clippers. Let's start with that. We talked mostly about series last week, but there was Game 7, which we didn't cover, obviously. Did you have any thoughts on Game 7 and how it played out?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like as you said, Kawhi did have a big game, but let's be real, who the X factor was in that series that made the big difference? I think also following up from Game 6 into Game 7, because I think both of us did not predict Reggie Jackson was gonna elevate like that,
I wasn't
and
sure who you were about
and
to say.
Yeah,
I agree.
and for all of you out there who claim to be basketball savants who like to say, "Oh, no superstars, everything," that's another example where role players make the difference. Because Luka Doncic had a monstrous game. I'm pretty sure he had a 45 point triple double ending that game. Now, he obviously excelled, but I will say, towards the end down the stretch, he went a bit cold, so he didn't close well. Obviously, once again, free throws. Like I don't understand how this guy is averaging 40% from the 3 point line, but 50% from the free throw line. Wait, did I say free throw twice? Forty
Yeah,
percent from the 3 point line, 50% from the free throw line. But again, plus 50% for the field. Like I don't understand. Like if Luca was hitting his free throws, that would have made a difference.
massive
But
difference.
Luca aside, he was not getting enough help from his teammates. And obviously, I mean Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, and I always forget the name, but the guy who's their secondary ball handler.
Jalen Brunson.
Yeah. Um, I won't say they played terrible. They played really good games. Um, not they didn't play great like they did, especially Tim Hardaway Jr. earlier in the series. But again, they're role players, so I think if anything, they gave you kind of somewhere about what you kind of expect. The big disappointment, Kristaps Porzingis, like he is supposed to be the one who was going to be the second star on that team. I believe he's made All Star teams before. I don't think he's ever played in any All Star games because of injuries, but he's been recognized in the past as maybe being like a borderline or like
Fringe All
some
Star.
people say definite All Star. Yeah. Um, but yeah, he couldn't hit a single shot. And even when the Clippers, no, the Mavs, when they tried to go big, putting him and and the big man Boban, having both of them out there, I mean, we could see it did bother the Clippers, especially like on the defensive end, but still, it wasn't enough. So they were literally just it was a ride or die with Luka Doncic essentially. So
I
he didn't have enough help, but he needs to improve his free throw shooting. Obviously, he needs to improve his defense as well, but those are only criticisms I have for him. But other than that, a man who went out there gave you 45 point triple double, who was still to me at least, the best player in this series from start to finish overall. Uh, I don't think you can ridicule him too much. Plus, he's still young and improving.
I completely agree with you in regard to Reggie Jackson being a massive difference maker. I didn't expect it. I he brought out shades of when he was on the Thunder so long ago.
Yeah.
He looked like a consistent good point guard. And I know he took a break from basketball for a bit because he didn't feel himself, but it looks like he's back to being a great contributor to the team. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where there was a big issue because, like, Luka Doncic and Kawhi are gonna do what they do. They're superstars.
Yep.
However, like Jalen Brunson, I don't think he showed up. Like in the final game, he played pretty well all series, but he had only two
Hmm.
points in the final game, and I think that's an issue.
Oh
I
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he only had 10 minutes though. I mean, like I'll give him that. Most of their starters played most of the game, but I feel like that was a big deal. Not to mention, there's not much you could do when I believe it's Marcus Morris, right? Not Markieff.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that. He backed him up with like what, like 25 points, something like that.
24, and he shot 8 of 15. Not to mention he shot 7 of 9 from three.
Yeah,
So he
again,
shredded them at
role
the 3-point
player.
line.
Yeah, role players make a difference.
Yeah.
They really do.
So I mean that buried the game for him, but I think all around, I mean Paul George showed up for game 7 too. Kawhi
Yeah,
showed up. Everybody showed up for the Clippers. Meanwhile,
yeah.
a lot of the Mavericks players, including Porzingis, I don't care, what his stats necessarily were, he wasn't playing up to his potential. It just wasn't there. And I think that they also probably need to, excuse me, sorry, accidentally just opened my Windows bar. Um, so in regards to big men, the Mavericks definitely need to acquire more because I don't think Porzingis is the guy that they anticipated. I'm not going to call him soft, but I don't think he's physical enough for them to, even even if the Clippers didn't have many big men, they have a lot of physical guys. Like Marcus Morris could have gone down there and probably bullied Porzingis if he wanted to. Even if it wasn't you know shooting or anything, it was just physicality. You didn't see much of it from Porzingis, and I thought that was a massive issue. Tim Hardaway played pretty well. I like what I saw from him, and then Doncic was Doncic. But
Uh,
it's weird because I think that the longer that series went, the worse it was going to be for the Mavericks, and that's what ended up happening.
I honestly think I'm at a point now because I like Porzingis and I hyped him up a lot over going to Dallas, especially seeing his improved perimeter shooting. But I'm at a point now where I think Mark Cuban, he should really consider trading Porzingis and getting rid of him. But I think they should hold on to Boban. Like, even if you're going to keep him on the bench as a backup or role player, I think he can still help a bit
I
because
don't
he's better in the physicality aspect than Porzingis.
I don't think he's starter material, but I definitely think he's a key contributor for them off the
Yeah.
bench. Like I definitely think he'd be worthwhile. But other than that, I mean that was an extremely entertaining series, and watching Kawhi put the team on his back for a game or two before that was extremely entertaining, and
Hmm.
watching playoff P not exist and be more clutch than he was. And I think that's something that we're definitely going to need to see more of moving forward. But the Clippers team is right now, in my opinion, capable of beating anyone if they play at their top. But they're very
Yeah.
inconsistent.
They were like that last year, rolling into this year. Same thing. I told you before. In terms of the roster and who they have, they are absolutely championship caliber. They can compete with anyone, but it's a matter of execution. But I did this before, but I'm gonna do it again. Utah Jazz, they're beating the Clippers.
I agree. I actually agree with you. And I
Okay.
believe my bracket has the Clippers losing to the Jazz in six, maybe. Um, so we can go straight into that, because that was just Game 7. That was the only one we didn't get to cover from our last episode. We can go straight into Clippers Jazz if you'd like, and start there.
Sure. All I got to say for anyone who doubted Donovan Mitchell, calling him a kid or whatever, the guy is a superstar. Period. Honestly, I'll go as far as to say maybe top 10 player in the league. At least you could talk about it.
Definitely, definitely. I think he is.
Yeah, but I'm also gonna pump the brakes on this because I heard this get brought up on ESPN First Take. Um, Donovan Mitchell, already the greatest Jazz player ever, already better than Karl Malone. No, 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 no.
I don't think he's better than
Could
Stockton yet either.
yeah, yeah. Could he be potentially?
Absolutely.
Sure, sure. Right
Absolutely.
now, no. Those guys, they were monsters in their eras for that Jazz organization. They'll pump the brakes under recency bias,
I
but Mitchell's coming for sure. He's a star.
I think that we all know, well, I think everyone knows now that Donovan Mitchell is clearly a superstar.
If they know
However,
basketball.
yeah. However, I don't think there's enough credit being given to the rest of the Jazz because, like,
Oh, absolutely. Joe Ingles, the guy who had Paul George's number.
yeah, Joe Ingles and his defense, and Jordan Clarkson. When guys like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert need like a rest, Jordan Clarkson, as a scorer coming off the bench, has been
Mm-hmm.
massive for them, and I don't
Yeah,
think that
and
can be
the
understated.
shooting, the
Yeah.
shooting too. They have one of the Bogdanoviches, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he is great offensively and defensively so far this series. So I've been impressed with that.
Mm. And even Donovan Mitchell got to point this out. He's not just scoring, he's facilitating and locking up on defense. He's playing an all-around perimeter game.
I think if you went back 2 years too, watching Donovan Mitchell, it was a completely different player. You saw him scoring a lot of points, but it was more, not necessarily catch and shoot, but very much catch the ball and I'm gonna, take the shot whether it's a comfortable shot or not. I'm the guy, and that's fair. He's a
Yeah.
great player, but he wasn't facilitating the offense like you mentioned. He
Yeah.
wasn't, you know, controlling the pace. Now he's at a point where he's learning how to be, a
A
court
leader.
general and just run the floor himself, and it's made a massive difference.
Yeah, and like, I think back then, because he was essentially playing like a pure two-way game, just scoring, and he was also always a good defender. But I think that's when they had him playing shooting guard because they had Ricky Rubio as their point guard. But then they transitioned to forcing him to be the primary ball handler, and so he was in a way forced to like learn to facilitate better. So I think that's actually helped him grow because having the ball in his hands more, having being forced to like make more decisions out there, like he stepped up to the challenge and it's actually improved this game. And once again, the playmaking is something that goes so undervalued because everyone likes to see the guys who put up the most points. But playmaking is what really elevates the team around you, and it actually opens up your individual scoring ability as well. Because
Now,
now he's getting easier shots for himself.
I'm curious to see your opinion on this. So, like Mike Conley
Hmm.
was hurt, and I believe he's coming back soon. Do you think a return to the lineup would potentially mess up the pace of play from what they're currently playing? Of course, he's a great player. He's a starting point guard worthy, but
Yeah.
do you think that it could ruin the pace of Donovan Mitchell running the offense, bringing up the ball into the court?
I mean, I don't think so. Because even with playing, even when Conley is playing, don't they check Conley in at two guard and still have Mitchell as
Yeah,
the main ball handler? Yeah, if anything, I think it would give Donovan Mitchell a break or a little usage
another
rate, like
option. Yeah,
having another ball handler. But I think where it will be better is on defense. 'Cause Mike Conley is
absolutely.
an amazing defender.
Um, yeah, it's interesting because like I thought the chemistry was super smooth in the last few games without Mike Conley, and I'm not saying that it's bench Mike Conley or anything. He's a phenomenal point guard, but it was just interesting to watch how well they played without him too, even. Um,
Mhm.
but I think that's a lot in part to I mean game one or game two was extremely entertaining to watch because no I don't think I've seen a shooting performance that good in like the last year or two where it was just so consistent. Every shot was being hit across the board, and I mean as Clippers they were even playing pretty good defense. It's like what do you do? There's nothing you can do. Just
I
shots were
think what
falling.
also makes that I think what also makes that team interesting also is one superstar stuffed with great role players who know their roles and fill every role that's needed. I'll say Gobert, what's it called? All-star ish. I'll say all-star ish. Definitely like a stellar defender or whatever. But the reason why I say all-star ish is because guys like Rudy Gobert's play style, they're really not the all-star players like this era. Like it's more biased towards the offensive players. But I'll say he's Donovan Mitchell's the only star level offensive player on the team. But
Yeah.
if we look at defensively, then obviously Gobert is there with him. But
Yeah.
so it's essentially a superstar with role players around him.
And like when we measure like the teams up against each other, like you'll probably compare Donovan Mitchell and I would say Kawhi because that's their two top players from each team, and
Yeah,
then I guess Paul George in a sense to Rudy Gobert because they're both not as big as a difference maker, but still major contributors on in their own respect.
yeah.
And then you have like the role players, and I think the role players are far and away better on the Jazz, but Rudy Gobert specifically, I think, is going to be a massive difference maker. He already has been. Just like you have Zubac as your center, and you're getting to the point where you have to start or not start. You have to play DeMarcus Cousins because Zubac's not doing well enough against Gobert. You know, Zubac's had a couple decent to good games, but he's no Rudy Gobert. He's going to get bullied down low, and that's a problem. And even to the point where you got guys like Paul George who they're trying to draw fouls down low and they're trying to, get inside. But Rudy Gobert is very good at not fouling and contesting the shot in the best way possible. And it's getting the best of Paul George. You could see him getting frustrated down low. You could see him having to go push himself outside to more deep shots. And I think it's altering the Clippers' offense completely in an interesting way that it's hard to see.
I think Reggie Jackson could also be a difference maker here as well if he continues that track. 'Cause, like in terms of like the role players on both sides, I think if we were to pick like the best role player in either sides, I think it will probably be Reggie.
I disagree, Jordan
Who
Clarkson.
do you?
But I only my
I don't
perspective
know.
is he's able to come in the game and rest most of the starters and contribute good shooting in the process. So he's giving those guys a big rest where they can go and play like, the last 8 minutes of the fourth quarter or something when it's like major like just the effect it has on the game management and the time management. But if you compare Reggie Jackson and like Mike Connolly, like I'm currently taking Reggie Jackson from the way he's playing, just because he's playing really good basketball and it's consistent.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, I'd like to see Mike Conley return to his. He's been to an All Star game, so his All Star self. You know, I know he's getting up there, but he's still entertaining to watch. I loved watching him
Mm.
play on the Grizzlies. Um, so do you have anything else to talk about with that series?
No. Next topic.
All right. Where do you want to go? Do you want to talk?
I need to get this off my chest. The Brooklyn Nets and Milwaukee Bucks game. You guys have no idea how infuriated I am that people are really accusing Giannis of intentionally injuring Kyrie Irving. The man went inside to grab a rebound because Kyrie was getting a putback shot. Kyrie was up in the air, and if anything, Drew Holiday was closer to undercutting him than Antetokounmpo, but he was running in when the ball was up and trying to box out to be ready for the rebound. And like when he's boxed out, he's gonna get down low and spread out. Like Giannis wasn't aware that his foot was underneath Kyrie's landing zone. Like his face was towards the glass. He was focused on getting the rebound, which is what bigs are supposed to do.
Yeah.
But again, the guy is tall, he's long, so his foot was under Kyrie's landing zone. It's unfortunate Kyrie got hurt, but there was no malice there at all.
No, and I think what a lot of people who have that thought don't understand is a lot of it's playoff basketball. That's people are trying to win. No one's trying to lose the game. So everyone's going to go for that rebound. Everyone's going to crash the boards. They want the ball. So it's there's no malice intent. No one's trying to hurt anybody. At least in my opinion. You might play during the season, you might play 100%, your hardest 100%, but when it comes playoff time, every guy is trying to play 200%. They're trying to play well and above and beyond. And that's also part of the reason why these guys are getting hurt. They're, overworking themselves trying to win games. Everyone wants to win the title. So, you know, however it goes down, no one's trying to hurt each other. Um, I mean, it's depends on situation to situation, but judging from
Yeah.
every replay I've seen, which we'll show it in a second, I don't think there
Mm.
was any, ill intent from Giannis to Kyrie.
Yeah, absolutely not.
So, do you want to roll the footage?
Yeah, yeah. Let's show the audience the tape.
All right. Here's the replay that we wanted to show you guys. And by the way, this is from Bleacher Report, so we don't own the tape or anything. And it was NBA on ESPN, but this is the replay from the other night, and we just wanted to show it off.
Their share of injuries all season long, including their stars.
Yeah, he was running in to box him out. I'm sure you guys probably saw like his arm go out. Again, that was not a shove to Kyrie right there. He was extending his arms to box out the paint to he landed to keep him from like running in to grab the rebound if the ball missed. Like that's what bigs do when they're boxing out to get ready for the rebound. Like he was not watching Kyrie's feet or anything. His face was towards the glass. He was watching the ball. So it was not malice at all. It's unfortunate Kyrie's hurt. But I will say this. I have a feeling that now that Kyrie's hurt, we might see the emergence of James Harden in the series.
Do you think that what do you think's a more dangerous combo? James Harden and Kevin Durant or Kyrie and Kevin Durant?
James Harden and Kevin Durant, because James Harden is the facilitator. James Harden's playmaking is what's going to, first of all, set up Blake Griffin, Joe Harris. It's James Harden's playmaking that's setting them up, and it's going to allow KD to work more off the ball. With Kyrie and KD there, it's going to be pretty much just a barrage of ISO scoring.
I agree with you. I think that they both contribute a lot, and I think that the Nets would win the series with two. I think the Nets would win the series with any of the two.
Yup.
Like I think they would win. Even if it was Kyrie and Harden versus Giannis and Middleton, I think that the Nets are better. But it's opinion based. But I think that any two of them, especially Kevin Durant, James Harden, are capable of beating the Bucks. The only way I see the Bucks winning this series is if they only have one star, whether it be Kevin Durant or anybody else, or no stars, and that's currently the position they're in.
I kind of disagree there. Like, I wouldn't say any of the two because I say one of them has to be Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
Like, I do not think Kyrie and James Harden will beat the Bucks.
it's I definitely think it would be the closest out of the every combination. I think Kyrie and Harden would definitely be the closest series. Um, like I think Kevin Durant is far and away, well, not far and away, but he's the best player on the team, and I definitely think he's the most important out of the three superstars. So
Yeah.
he is what I would consider to be the most essential. Like he's the last person you want to lose. You don't want to lose any of them, but he's the last person you want to lose. And then James Harden, and then Kyrie Irving, in my opinion. So
I'm also looking at it like this. So in Milwaukee, they have those trees on that team. You don't want to take a 7 foot freak like Kevin Durant who can play small. You don't want him out the lineup because if you remove him, that's just going to make it even easier for
yeah.
them. But I also got to throw this in there. Can we give some love to PJ Tucker for locking up his boy KD?
I will give PJ Tucker credit for kind of locking down KD as well as getting into KD's head. Even though they're
Yep.
lifelong friends. I'm pretty sure they've been
Yeah.
friends for a very long time.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah. They're boys.
but with that said, since you know each other for a long time, you're going to know how to poke his buttons too. So I think
Yeah.
that's something that's definitely a contributing factor. Um, and I don't think, as crazy as it might sound, I don't think Kevin Durant can carry the Nets alone to win the series. Um,
I mean, I think there it'll depend on if Joe Harris can get hot, if Blake Griffin actually, if his utilizing him more, if that'll make a difference if he starts showing some semblance of like somewhat all-star caliber. But now on Milwaukee's end, your boy Chris Middleton, if he continues this upward track that he's been showing, then you're right, the Bucks would win. But if he starts to show like some of the old Middleton, then I think the Nets would win.
I,
But I also gotta call you out on this, Ev. Remind me again, audience. Maybe your memory might be better than mine. Who was gonna dog Blake Griffin? I believe his name was Brook Lopez.
I think Brook Lopez is playing just fine, but
Oh, I'm not
he
saying
is.
he's been playing bad, but he is not dogging Brook Lopez. And oh man, Blake Griffin. That I know you like that dunk on Giannis. Phew.
I don't like a man who doesn't bother to dunk for his previous team and then out of nowhere shows up and shows out on a team with three other superstars. I don't
He
think
dunk.
that is admirable in the slightest.
He
And
dunking for the win.
I used to be a Blake Griffin fan, and that does legitimately bother me that someone could show such little effort on the Pistons and then show such a vast difference in gameplay when he joins Brooklyn. I don't like that. Um, but he has proven me wrong. He's playing better than I anticipated, but that's his own fault for what he showed me in Detroit.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to actually talk a little bit more about Chris Middleton and Giannis. I feel like there's a sense of, while it's, I guess, in a sense, Giannis's team, I feel like there's starting to be a shift in leadership towards Chris Middleton. Um, I feel like a lot of the players on the team and even the coach are going to Chris Middleton in the middle of the game and talking to him about assignments and, spacing the floor. And he's also having more minutes than Giannis in every game. And I'm not saying, he's better than Giannis or anything, but I feel like there's a sense of he's going to be the guy running the offense over Giannis.
It comes down to one thing: the shooting. Because when Middleton has the ball outside, he spaces out the floor, and then having Giannis to back him up down low, playing closer to the rim where Giannis is at his best to crash the offensive glass and get the putback. That's what they did against the Heat. And to be honest, I've even looking back to 2018 when the Bucks had lost to the Celtics. I still remember watching that series. Once again, the ball was in Middleton's hands more. In some of those games, he was outscoring Giannis. And
Yeah.
as you said, he's not better than Giannis, but it's a matter of floor spacing. Because if
Yeah.
Giannis is dominating the ball, the opposing team, they're gonna have their guys get back and they're gonna wall off the paint to contain him. But that's but then having the ball in Middleton's hands, they're gonna have to play the perimeter more, and that opens up the floor for everyone
Yeah.
else. And like if with the ball moving, and then Middleton, he's become even better shot creator. Like it's his perimeter shooting. That's why they're making that shift. 'Cause the coach, like he's seeing that Middleton's perimeter shooting is key to the Bucks' success.
Yeah, and I think Middleton has evolved in a sense from his previous years, where I feel like he's not just taking open shots from floor spacing anymore. He's going one on one with whoever's guarding him, and he's taking fadeaway shots in people's faces, but he's making a lot of them. And I think that's just a matter of confidence and believing that you're able to make that shot, where he's able to take a bunch of those. I feel like there's points in the game where Giannis is, I won't say playing them out of the game, but taking a lot of silly shots that are, deteriorating the Bucks gameplay and their scoring. I don't know if it's out of frustration or he just feels like he needs to get hot to continue. And then you see Chris Middleton get the ball a couple times and run a smarter offense. If he can't find an open shot or a comfortable shot, he's distributing it or he's spacing out. He's calling for a pick and roll, something like that. It's completely different watching him play versus Giannis this series.
Well, I mean, we've gotten it heated in the face over Giannis before, but as I've told you, Giannis's offensive scoring ability is straight line drive.
It's limited.
Like I'm not gonna say that he not skilled at all. Like he's a superstar. He has skill, but and the stature where he is, where we consider him like in the highest tier of superstars in the league, his skill is at the bottom
Yeah.
compared to guys like KD, Harden, even still, even though he's old LeBron. Like these guys, they have more skills under the belt to fall back on, and I think LeBron's a perfect comparison. Cause that explosive play, like we all seen that type of play from LeBron, but he's also had the finesse and the soft touch, like switching hands, the move, all of that versatility under his belt as well to fall back on.
Yeah.
Giannis, he shows moments of it, but not consistent enough.
I think that in the off season, he shouldn't focus on anything that he currently does. I think he should just go to the 3-point line every day of the year during the summer and off season and just shoot threes constantly, shoot free throws constantly, anything that he's like, because those are his two biggest weaknesses. Because he's getting to a point too where he's almost getting hacked to be forced to take free throws because he's missing a lot of them, and that's an issue. I mean, as a superstar, you can't be missing free throws. Like Shaq, sure, he couldn't shoot free throws, but he was very dominant down low too. So, and I understand that Giannis can do that too, but for someone that's supposed to be, in a sense, facilitating the offense, he brings up the ball a lot. You need to be capable of taking free throws if you're going to get hacked at half court. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, that's a serious issue. So shooting the ball on a consistent basis this offseason should be his main focus. Trying to fix his jump shot or, adjust his jump shot where he's going to be more confident in taking those shots.
No dunks in off season. We know you can dunk
Yeah.
already. None of that.
And we know
If
you
you're
can
gonna
dominate
like
down
work
low.
inside, even practice some post moves too. Post moves, like other stuff to operate off the ball more. But all the straight line drive, you have that under your belt.
Yeah.
You're not gonna lose that.
So I also had a question in regards to Kevin Durant for you. So we see Kevin Durant kind of in a situation where he's going to have to carry the series
Or
until
kind of like
Kyrie.
LeBron James.
Well, yes, similar to Kyrie or without Kyrie or Harden, and similar to what LeBron had to do. But my question was more geared towards uh, Kawhi Leonard in that regard. So I know Kawhi's got a lot of people around him, but when it matters most, he's putting up 35 to 40-point games, and we haven't seen that yet from Kevin Durant. Do you still confidently say that Kevin Durant's a better player than Kawhi Leonard?
Yes, I do. Because, well, number one, even though this more recent year, we'd never seen Kevin Durant melt down to the extent that Kawhi did. Um, in addition, let me think about this. Offensively, all right, we'll go backtrack a little bit to like Kawhi's first ring in San Antonio. Like he did elevate his game that year, but even still, he was not playing on like Kevin Durant or LeBron James level. He was just at the time he was a role player, but like elevated his game. Like he was at what he was in the season like a 15-point per game scorer, and then well, it was like averaging like 22 points in the finals, but it was really his defense that impressed everyone. And he was the fourth option on that team behind the Spurs' big three.
So
Like Kevin Durant's been the number one option, like essentially since he came in the league. And
current
now, go ahead.
currently playing, who do you think is the top three players in the playoffs right now in general?
All right, so everyone that's left. I mean,
Yeah, and
number,
this isn't off of playoff performance specifically. I
all
mean,
right, just who,
you can
just who.
include it. You can include
All
it
right,
if
but
you'd like
just
in
I feel
general.
just who is the best player, like skills, abilities, not just what we're seeing, just what they have. The best player in the playoffs, right? Well, oh yeah, you said top three: KD, Kawhi, and number three. This one might be controversial, but honestly, Embiid.
Okay, I can respect that.
B-
Um,
Because this thing is, I don't know. I actually have Embiid like where I place him like in the league. I kind of have him and Giannis like in a weird like in between, just because their play
between
styles are
superstar
different.
and star kind of deal. Well, I know we know they're superstars, but they're not like I feel like there's a top tier superstar where like that's where your KD, Kawhi, and LeBron is. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like the slight separation between that.
and the thing is that I feel like Giannis is closer to it in terms of like what we see him, how we see him
The tools he
execute.
has, yeah.
But in terms of like the skill set and stuff that I think Embiid has a better all around skill set than Giannis does.
And I think Embiid's also a victim of lack of spotlight. Like, we have four great series going on, but let's be honest, Philadelphia and Atlanta's probably the least watched out of the four.
Yeah. But Embiid, like I think we got to give credit to that. I'm so impressed with Embiid this year. We never seen him dominate in the playoffs like this. Isn't he averaging like almost 40 points against the Hawks right now?
With the slightly torn meniscus, yes,
Yeah.
that's impressive. And I think that goes to show how bad the Knicks played. But as well as Clint Capella and John Collins, as good as both of them are, they're both great players. Are
Hmm.
nowhere near as good as um one of the top two big men in the league. I say top two because I do have Jokic in there too. So I think it's debatable of who's better, but I mean those two guys versus the rest of the top big men, there's no comparison. There's no other big men out except for those two. You can make the argument of Anthony Davis. I'll tell you that, but we haven't seen a lot from him because he's injured. But there's such a big difference in skill between those top two and like the rest of the big men in the league because it's been a shooter's game the last few years, and
Yeah,
you've been seeing more of that. But now you have two extremely dominant big men, and Embiid specifically, since he's the only one left, it's been entertaining to watch.
yeah. Now I gotta throw a question back at you. It's the one that you asked me. Who would you take as number one between Kawhi and KD?
If I'm going off of playoff performance right now, um, and not in general, I'm taking Kawhi. Um, but in general, Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
Like if I'm ranking the top three players in the playoffs strictly off of playoff performances, I
yeah,
think that number one uh, is probably I'm gonna say Donovan Mitchell. Even though he's only had a small sample size of games, it's just the impact he's had in those games has been pretty big. But then I'm gonna go Kawhi, and then probably probably Embiid. Like I know Kevin Durant's had
yeah,
a big impact, but like
yeah,
they're not winning games when he's alone. So like
yeah,
it's not a big enough impact. I know Kawhi has had help around him, but a lot of these times you could tell that there's these games where they shouldn't be close, and he's keeping them close in these games, whether it be defense or offense. He usually puts up 25 a game, but when the game matters, all of a sudden he's putting up 40, 45. So I think he understands what needs to get done to win those games, and I think that's important. But in general, I would take Kevin Durant over Kawhi still.
yeah. Since I heard you also agree that you'd have Embiid like in that three spot, would you say that let's say the Sixers do get to the finals this year, and whether they win or lose, but Embiid does remain consistent and does play dominant, do you think it would be fair to start considering him in in top five discussions?
Uh, let's talk about that. So I have right now my top five. Let's see. We have Kevin Durant. That's clear. Kawhi Leonard. Um, I would say Luka Doncic is right there, and then Steph Curry. So I know there's a big name you're waiting for me to say. So then you have LeBron left. So I think that you still have him sitting around 6 or 7. I don't think
Yeah,
he's there. But it's not anything against him. It's just the amount of star
yeah.
power that's in the league. So that's nothing wrong with him. It's
Yeah, it just shows he's coming. Like we're just saying that he's on the right track, and
yeah.
now he's gonna start. Cause now he's actually giving. He's just starting to give some evidence to support that. But now we just need to see some more from here on.
Yeah, because like that's the clear cut five. So then like with 6, 7, and 8, you got the main three that come to my mind, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody in here too. But the main
Anthony Davis.
injured, so I'm not going to talk about them.
Okay.
But the main three that come to mind are Embiid, Jokic, and Damian Lillard are the top three that I could think of after. And
Okay.
it's Damian Lillard's in a similar situation to where, Kevin Durant's in right now. He's kind of forced to carry his team, so I feel like it's very unfair to evaluate him without help. Um, Jokic, I guess, in a sense too, because I feel like even if it's just Jamal Murray, and that's not an insult to Jamal Murray. He's a great player, but he's not necessarily like a top 15 player. Missing that, he's got almost no one around him. And then Embiid, he has Simmons too, but I don't really regard Simmons as top as everybody else. I
Yeah.
think that those three guys are all lacking a superstar right next to him, or like another guy equivalent to them because I think Embiid's clearly better than Simmons. I know they play
Yeah.
different positions, but most of these other teams where you got like Harden and Durant, like that's a sense of where they're not necessarily evenly matched, but very close to being the same caliber. And I don't
Yeah.
think those three guys at 6, 5, 6, 7, and 8. have that. So it's kind of hard to evaluate because they're all kind of being forced to carry their team. Uh,
I think there's another name we could even throw in there for being like best player. Like if we're talking strictly right now in the playoffs,
Carmelo
we got to
Anthony.
give love to Chris Paul.
Hmm.
Like it's just so amazing, like the longevity he's showing, and he's still like consistently elevating in some way, depending on what his team needs. He's been closing out games for the Phoenix Suns, not Devin Booker, these past couple games. And
Uh,
it's not that Booker's playing bad, but Chris Paul is the one who's been dominating.
and
Like it's just incredible.
I saw a comment of someone saying the Suns resurrected Chris Paul's career, and I said, no, 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 no. Chris Paul
No.
resurrected the
Yeah,
Suns.
exactly. Whoever said that, that is blasphemous, and they
Yeah,
shouldn't be allowed to talk
exactly.
basketball.
I agree,
No.
100%. Chris Paul has made a massive
Yeah.
difference for that team.
And you got to hear first because Evans have heard me say it. Like, obviously, we're looking at resume and rings and stuff. Like, people hold that against him, but what's hindered Chris Paul is injuries. But I've said it many times, and I still believe to this day, the best point guard in this era, this modern era of basketball, to me, from an all-around point guard game, is Chris Paul. Decision making, he can score with the elite scores out there. Like I would take obviously guys like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, like even back in like 2015 to 18, Russell Westbrook, Kyrie, we see them consistently put up higher, bigger scoring games. But when Chris Paul needs to, he can score just as well as them. He's
And
in a class of his own facilitating wise and defensively in his younger days. He was an amazing perimeter defender. His
and
basketball IQ is way above theirs as well.
that's what I was looking for. The
Yeah.
ability to, whether it be kill clock or facilitate a long possession that's going to get ultimately an open shot, or just, pick and roll in general, facilitating that with DeAndre Eaton. There is
Yeah.
so much that he is improved. I mean, as a team for them, but for each
Everywhere
player,
he goes.
for like,
Everywhere he
yeah,
goes.
but like for each player too for the Suns, like he's
Mm,
getting Devin Booker space, he's finding him open shots. Because when the Suns didn't have Chris Paul, Devin Booker is clearly going to be the guy that's going to be heavily guarded, and he still is. But Chris Paul is able to recognize, shifts and movements where Devin Booker is going to be able to get open, or if he's able to work a pick and roll with DeAndre Eaton, any sort of screen, just to find an open shot, even if it's to the role players. It's changed them completely. He is a
mhm.
a coach's player, but he's also a player's coach. Um,
Yep.
he's literally a coach on the court. There's nothing better
Mm.
than that.
I'll even go as far as to say this, and as you know, LeBron James is by far my favorite player all time. Chris Paul is a better floor general than LeBron James. I'll
I can
say,
agree with that.
and that's no disrespect to LeBron. Everyone knows how high sharp LeBron basketball IQ is in his floor generalship, but I think Chris Paul is even superior to that. Just to give people a vivid picture of how impactful Chris Paul can be, despite the fact that and LeBron had the advantage of being a 6'8", 250 plus pound freakish athlete. Chris Paul's a 6'1", or even 6 foot flat like point guard. I mean, when he was young, he could run and he was fast. He's still pretty fast now, but he was no phenomenal athlete,
Chris
and
Paul
he's so impactful.
Chris Paul is the Peyton Manning of the NBA. Rings or not, because I know Peyton Manning has two, but he's the guy that has all the IQ and he knows every exact situation and what he needs to get done to win that. Whether he pulls that situation off or not, he's going to put them in the best possible situation to have a chance at solving the problem. And he knows
Hmm.
what needs to get done to accomplish that.
Best point guard of this era.
Best pure point guard. I agree. So let's talk about what have we not talked about? We've
Back to officiating. Oh man, that bogus call. I cannot believe that Jokic got ejected from the game. Well, it was last night, right? Or was it the night before?
I believe
Last
it was
night, I think.
the Yes.
whatever night it was. If you win or go home for the Denver Nuggets against the Suns, and I cannot believe the ref really ejected Nikola Jokic. He was making an attempt at the ball to swipe the ball from Cameron Payne. And Jokic did. Like, it was a foul. It definitely was a foul. Like, his arm hit him on the nose. And I'm not gonna go as far to say that Payne necessarily flopped because like Jokic is a big guy and he's strong, so
Yeah, it'll
and a
hurt.
hard swipe like that, it'll shake him up. But that did not garner flagrant
No.
two because I like we talked about it before. Sometimes understanding like what's definitely a flagrant one and flagrant two is kind of understand like it's a bit of a convoluted definitions for them. From my perspective, the flagrant one is considered unnecessary contact that could potentially even be like harmful for the player and wasn't necessarily it wasn't necessary in a sense. It could even be accidental sometimes because like these things happen depending on like the severity of the contact. That's a flagrant one, but flagrant two is a clear, malicious, intentional attack on a player to injure them. Jokic made an attempt at the ball. Jokic is 7 foot. Cameron Payne is how tall is he? Maybe like 6'5", something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jokic is bigger, taller, so that's why his arm bumped him. Like if he was smaller, he'd obviously be able to poke the ball out, but he swatted the ball out his hand. His forearm hit Payne's nose. Like it was not intentional at all.
I am very much on the side that no star player should be treated different from the rest of the team in regards to ejecting. So like if you were going to eject any player, then like fine, whatever. But I don't agree with the call itself. Like I mean, there's been previous instances where a superstar player makes a very dirty play, let's say, and they don't get ejected because for the entertainment of the game, let's say.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that, but
Hmm.
Jokic's foul specifically, you could tell it was a frustration foul. He's pissed off, whatever. That's fine. It happens. It's the spirit of competition. But the fact that he made more contact with the ball and almost purely stole that without edging Cameron Payne's nose. I mean, it was a hard hit on his nose. I get that, but it was quite clear he made more contact with the ball than he did with Cameron Payne's nose, and it was clear that he was frustrated, but he was going for the ball. I
Yeah,
cannot understand how that is called a flagrant two and you are ejected from the game for that. In a
yeah,
game in the middle of the playoffs with your best player, the MVP of the league, that makes zero sense to me.
and it was win or go home for them. And even so, I don't even call the frustration foul. What I consider frustration foul is if he ran up and like shoved him or whatever
Yeah.
because he didn't get a foul call for him. Like that, like an intentional foul out of frustration. That wasn't an intentional foul. He was going
No.
to strip the ball. That was the play on the ball.
My
Like no, that was that a flagrant one
my
even that, like, I can kind of understand because of like how hard that contact was right there. But a flagrant two, absolutely not.
my thought with the frustration foul is like, like you've been on the court before where things might not be going your way or you just got fouled hard and it wasn't called and like you're almost red faced, you're livid about it, and you're not necessarily going to go foul someone intentionally, but you're going to play way more physical. And I think that's what he was kind of doing. He was like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to go for the steal. But I don't think in any way it was, malicious intent, and that's where
Yeah,
it bothers me because
yeah,
it was the series was probably going to end anyway that night, but it killed all the entertainment for the rest of the game. You have to watch Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, and company try to carry a team that lost their two best players for that game and well for the series with regards to Jamal Murray. But now you lost your best player for the rest of the game in hopes that you have to overturn a comeback against one of the best teams in the league. And
hmm,
it's robbed of you. And the fans got robbed too because you don't get to watch the final 12 minutes with the MVP of the league playing.
yep. Michael Porter Jr. was pretty impressive though. Like after Jokic
Yeah.
ran out.
And speaking of Jokic too, I have to give credit to DeAndre Eaton who played like a top five center in the league
Yep.
against Jokic. Whether Jokic outplayed him or not, DeAndre Ayton held close to him, and I can respect that.
Yeah, he held it down against AD. He held it down against
Yep.
Jokic. He's showing he can play with the best bigs in this game.
So I think that out of all the centers in the NBA, who do you think is 3 and 4? Because we know Jokic and Embiid, regardless of what order you feel, are 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Um, so who do you think's like 3 and 4?
Honestly, some people may say this is too quick or too soon or recency bias, but I think it's fair to put Aiton right there.
I agree.
Yeah,
I just
you
wanted to
already.
see what you were saying.
Yeah, I think we've already vented our frustrations with Carl Anthony Towns because
Yeah.
I think he should be the number 3 guy, but I put an 8 in there because he gives enough evidence. Again, and now with Rudy Gobert, like it's again one of those things. His offense isn't there enough for me to put him over Aiton because Aiton actually improved defensively. But when he came in the league, he was a pure offensive center, but he's showing some good post defense.
I don't know if I'd put him above Gobert, but I'd put him right next to him. Just because of Gobert's defense and rebounding. I know Eaton has that too, but just the way it alters specifically the Jazz, and it could be different for each team. The way that Rudy
Mhm.
Gobert alters the offense and defense for the Jazz is drastic. Even if it doesn't look like it.
Oh yeah. For the Audi, can we show them like some tape of the Jokic play on Pain?
Absolutely. Again, this is owned by Bleacher Report, and it was NBA on TNT, so credit to them too for the game. We don't own any of this, so please don't copyright us. But here is the Jokic foul that got him ejected with a flagrant 2. Let's roll it.
Frustration foul. He felt that he was fouled. They didn't call it.
So
Ball.
as you can see, it just edges his face. Even if it hurts, I get it because it was a hard swing, but he got mostly ball on that. There was makes no sense.
Not a flagrant 2 at all. Flagrant 1, sure, because of the wind up. But that is not a flagrant 2. That's a play on the ball. I'm pretty sure the ball felt that more than his face.
And all right, so in regards to that whole sequence, Devin Booker gets into it after with Jokic. If I'm not mistaken, Devin Booker, I think even Cameron Payne, I'm not 100% positive. Uh, Michael Malone, the coach, and Monty Williams all made statements saying that Jokic should not have been ejected. What does that tell you? On both sides, even the man that went to go up to Jokic and get into a physical altercation with him said it was not worth getting ejected over. What does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. They probably all thought it was going to be a flagrant 1.
Yep.
It's ridiculous, man.
It's just it's hard to watch.
And again, you see, like as we said before, how the players, when they decide to flop or do these things to play the refs, how they get ridiculed so much, but the refs themselves are not held accountable enough.
With that said, I would like to mention this because I love the refs so much, and that's complete sarcasm. I'm just trying not to say something toxic. Sean and I were talking about this before we started the podcast. Um, Something that we found big news from Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN is that the NBA is going to be looking into uh, players shifting their body to draw fouls off of jump shots. And I think that is phenomenal. But let me tell you something, there better be a established line because there are so many refs that either let it play out or call the softest fouls in this game. So it better be consistent for each player and each team going into every game because I am tired of the inconsistencies that are going on with each ref and each call. It's too much and there needs to be a fine line of what's a foul and what's not a foul.
Yeah, and I think they really need to sit down and buckle down on these film studies and like even the game time, they're definitely going to make use of like the camera replay center because I think what'll make it difficult for them is like as we know, every player on their jump shot they have different forms. Like even whether intentional or not, whether they're trying to drive a foul or not, some guys jump forward more than others. Some guys jump up higher than others on their
Yeah.
shot. So that's gonna um make it difficult for them. Even like the way they position their arms, like some of that's gonna make it tough for them. But again, that's why you're gonna have to really, as you say, solidify what's gonna garner a foul and what isn't. And honestly, I think they need to go back to some of the old school basketball rules. Allow more physicality out on perimeter. Obviously not pushing people. Like I hated seeing it so much. Sometimes Steph Curry when he fakes guys and goes up for a 3-point shot, guys can run up and shove him in the back and then he
Yeah,
doesn't get called they don't get called for a foul. Like that's a dangerous play. So I'm not advocating that. But thinking back in the Jordan era when they used to like hand check each other, like when they would play up one on one out on the perimeter, end up placing their hand on the hip to
yeah,
stick with their man. Like I think that should be
I agree.
allowed.
I agree,
They
and I
should bring
think
that back.
I
Yeah,
I think that um, something that's really important is that while there's while we said that there should be a definitive line, injury is the top priority, right? No one wants to get hurt, and I
yeah,
understand that, but there needs to be a sense of physicality because even with the soft referee calls and the way that they're going about it, there comes a point where you're frustrating players, regardless of what team it is. You're frustrating the guy who's on the other side of that call, and that could cause them to go and cause an injury, whether it be intentional or not. Do something that's way more, like a frustration foul. So we're gonna see, more anger. We're seeing more. I think we're already seeing it. We're seeing way more altercations with the players and the refs, because of these calls, and I think that's affecting obviously the relationship between the players and refs, but the players against other players. Like, they're getting sick of things that are getting called, and how they're being called. So if you allow at least slightly more physicality, um, I think you can prevent such I guess a toxic environment would be the way to go about it. But like, there needs to be some way to get a little bit of frustration out. No one's saying, let me elbow this guy straight in the face. It's just, basketball's physical. That's the way it works. You know,
yeah,
we're shifting to a game of um, finesse instead of power now. So like everything's going to be shooting and drawing fouls where the big men can't shove someone down low. They get called for a charging foul or they get called for an offensive foul almost every play for backing somebody down. What are they supposed to do? It's their job. They're supposed to get down low. They're supposed to score. That's the center and the power forward's job, and you're not being allowed to do that. And I think that it's killing certain positions like the center and power forward. I mean, I think Jokic and Embiid have to play softer basketball, which is not how a center is supposed to play basketball. But
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why, first of all, that's why the statistics of today are like inflated.
all three
Like that's
pointers
why
and
the
all free
numbers
throws.
off off the charts. That's a big reason why, whether some of you fans want to hear it or not, why Steph Curry is the dominant offensive force
Yeah,
today. Because the guys can't contest them as much as they'd want to. Like I'm not saying that he wouldn't be able to, like a lethal shooter, the lethal shooter in the era. But in terms of like the numbers and the rate at which he puts it up, guys can't contest it to the degrees they need to really um guard his shots.
I think
Like, and it's not just him, Damian Lillard, these other guys too.
yeah, I think there needs to be like a happy medium. Like I understand like the bad boy Pistons, that's way too much. I get it.
Yeah,
But like when you go to the eras of like Kobe and Shaq, I think like the early 2000s to like mid 2000s, I think that's like a really good medium that they found between calling fouls and what gets. I know some of it was corrupt. I
yeah,
know there was corrupt refs, but
yeah.
for the most part, what was being called in the threshold was, I think, fair for everybody.
I think a great example of what was an appropriate level of contact, not too much, not and not enough. It was the in the Miami Heat versus San Antonio Spurs NBA
Yeah,
Finals series.
yeah, I agree.
Both years, appropriate level of physicality allowed and appropriate fouls being called. Now, so obviously, obviously, sometimes we'll say, "Oh, the ref shouldn't have called the foul here or there." But in terms of like the physicality that was allowed, it was consistent. It was fair. They weren't allowing malicious contact
Yeah,
but at the same time, they were allowing a degree of physicality between the two teams to allow the defense to pressure the offense and making the offense have to really work for their points.
Yeah.
And I think there's another thing. This is something I'm throwing out there that will really probably push for a change in the way the game's officiating. I think the NBA needs to consider shortening the referees' wages.
Um.
Maybe then they would consider officiating the game better. Because
Yeah.
consider this as well, Ev, when as a paying customer you go to an NBA playoff game and you see the your superstar of the team you're going out there supporting get ejected. The bottom line is this: the superstars, they're the ones that are bringing in the fans.
Yeah.
They're the reasons why we're buying tickets in the first place.
Yeah.
They're
Four
the
hundred
reason why
dollar
the
ticket.
NBA yeah, they're the reason why the NBA is so rich right now. They're the reason why the players are getting paid more, the coaches are getting paid more, the analytic
But
department's getting paid more, everybody's getting paid more,
it's
including the refs. So start cutting their checks and see if they'll start
the
officiating better.
it's as simple as this. If I pay $400 to go watch that Nuggets game, let's say, and Jokic gets ejected, missing the fourth quarter, you better give me $100 back because I've paid specifically to watch him play basketball, especially if I'm a Nuggets fan.
Yeah,
So you better pay, let's say $100 a quarter watching him play. You better give me $100 back for missing the fourth quarter because that's
absolutely.
ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So we're running pretty close to out of time, but I think we didn't cover every series. The only one we didn't cover was Hawks versus Sixers. We talked a little bit about Embiid, but we didn't talk about everything specifically.
Oh, what's there to say? Sixers are winning the series. We're winning this tonight. We're taking control.
I want to say I told everybody I thought the Hawks could win, but I think that the Sixers are at a point where it's pretty much over. Especially with DeAndre Hunter hurt for the Hawks, I that was a pretty big piece. Even if he was only contributing, a role player's amount of work, he was contributing a good amount of points, and that was my whole spiel about the Hawks having a chance was everyone needs to be healthy, and that's a pretty key player to lose. So now you're back to okay, well Trey Young's going to have to carry for the most part, but now you need someone to have an above and beyond performance, whether that be John Collins or Kevin Huerter, or Bogdanovich. You need one of those guys now to drop 20 to 30 points, and I don't think you can get that on a consistent basis. So, and Simmons is stepping up too. So I'll give him credit because Simmons has played really well the last two games. Regardless of how, I mean, Embiid's been the best player in the series by far. And then I'll probably put Trey Young at two. But Simmons, we both talked about could be debatable of being the third best player in the series. But I think right now he's currently the third best player in the series.
Mm,
Tobias
I don't.
Harris is up there too.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, 'cause I remember I had texted you one of those games when both Tobias and Seth Curry had like 20 something points, and their plus minus were higher than Simmons. Simmons had what like single digit points. He didn't have that many assists either, like maybe 6 assists. So like again, it's as you said, like it just fluctuates. So with
Yeah.
some nights one of them goes off. So they're all like in that weird little pool.
And like unlike the Hawks, where I just told you like Kevin Huerter or Bogdanovich or John Collins, all one of them have to have a big game. They're not nearly as consistent as guys like Simmons or Tobias Harris, even Seth Curry. Like those guys are way more consistent. So like you can expect one of those three almost guaranteed to have a great game along with Embiid.
Yeah.
So I think that's
I
where the advantage is.
I think it's also interesting too. We're seeing Simmons cover Trey Young a lot.
Yeah. And
That's
I think
really
that's
interesting.
throwing Trey Young off a decent amount. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, like I said, it's the least recognized series out of the ones. I mean, because everyone wants to see Bucks Nets, especially with the injuries. What's going to happen? And then, Kawhi versus Donovan Mitchell has been spectacular so far. Because down 2-0, now the Clippers took one, so now it's 2-1. Um, Sixers and Hawks have been pretty underappreciated, but it's been a great series so far. I've enjoyed it.
I want everyone here to know this. When, not if, when the Sixers move on to the next round, I am going to a conference finals game. And just because, like, getting to the finals now, that might be kind of pushing it, but I believe the Sixers will get to the finals. Yeah, you heard me say it. I believe they will. I believe in them.
Can I shut this off?
Um, when they go to the if they get to the finals, I'm buying a ticket for that too. Sure, you might not see me on SEVelocity anymore because I might be home, but I am going to to at least one of those games in each of those series.
You know, it would be funny if the Nets lose and you guys lose to the Bucks for the finals,
That ain't
because that
happening.
shouldn't happen. But
That ain't
it would be
happening.
funny
And
if it did.
Embiid is the key to stopping Giannis.
No, Brook
Giannis
Lopez is
thinks
gonna bully Embiid.
yeah, Giannis thinks he's a big boy on the court. Guess what? Embiid's even bigger.
Embiid's gonna be sent home crying again.
Please.
All right. Well, with that said, do you have any additional thoughts to wrap up?
No, that's the usual. Everyone, once again, thank you for watching us. Thank you for supporting the show. Usual, we're enthusiastic about it. We're having a lot of fun, passionate about it. We love talking basketball, playoff basketballs, most wonderful time of the year. So just please like and subscribe. Drop in some comments, give us feedback what we could do better. Let us know whatever topics you want to hear from us in the future.
Yes, everything he said. I believe we're gonna start working on a social media page too. So when that gets done, we'll post it and give you guys a heads up. Uh, we definitely would like to do probably some polls to get some fan opinion too of what to talk about, or just in general people's thoughts on everything that's going on in the NBA. So with that said, like, comment, subscribe, like he said. Hope you all have a great week, and we will see you all next Saturday or Sunday. Have a good night.